Robert leans back in his seat, flipping through the script. So, I saved the world again, huh? His assistant, Jake, smirks. That's what the fans expect. The pilot's voice crackles over the intercom. Weather's getting rough up ahead, Mr. Downey. Outside, dark storm clouds gather, swallowing the peaks below. A flight attendant pours a cup of coffee, her hands steady despite the turbulence. Robert glances out the window. This storm looks like something out of a disaster movie. Jake chuckles, unaware of the real danger ahead. A sudden jolt rocks the plane, making the coffee spill onto the table. The pilot's voice turns urgent. We have a problem. Brace for emergency descent. The captain fights against the controls. We're losing altitude fast. The co-pilot flips switches, his hands shaking. Engines are failing. We need to find a clearing. Robert grips the armrests, his heart pounding. Tell me this is just a really immersive role prep. Jake's face is pale. I don't think this is part of the movie. The plane lurches violently, making loose items fly through the cabin. A deep groan comes from the left wing, the metal struggling against the wind. Robert exhales sharply. Okay, this is actually terrifying. The pilot shouts, "Brace! Brace! Brace!" The ground rushes toward them, a white blur of snow and ice. Robert's ears ring as he blinks through the smoke. Jake groans, unbuckling his seatbelt with shaking hands. A section of the fuselage is missing, exposing the brutal cold outside. Snow swirls into the cabin, carried by icy winds. A flight attendant helps the co-pilot out, both shivering uncontrollably. Robert stumbles onto the snow, breath visible in the freezing air. The wreckage creaks as metal cools and shifts. Jake wraps his arms around himself. We need shelter. Fast. Robert exhales, looking at the ruined plane. Then we start here. Robert shovels snow away from a section of the plane, creating a windbreak. Jake wraps a torn jacket around himself, teeth chattering. A flight attendant pulls a blanket from the wreckage, distributing what little warmth they have. The wind howls through the mountains, making the fuselage groan. Robert secures a broken piece of metal as a barrier against the elements. Jake glances at the distant peaks. Think anyone knows where we are? Robert tightens his grip on a salvage seatbelt. We're gonna make sure they do. The fire flickers weakly, barely holding back the freezing night. Above them, the sky is clear, stars twinkling, indifferent to their struggle. Robert looks at the group. All right, folks. Survival mode engaged. Jake nods. We keep the fire alive, no matter what. A pilot checks the radio, shaking his head. Still nothing. The flight attendant sets out what little food they salvaged, a handful of protein bars. Robert rubs his hands together. We ration everything, no exceptions. The wind picks up, making the fire dance wildly. Jake adjusts the shelter walls, reinforcing them with more debris. Robert grips a broken metal rod, just in case they're not alone in the wilderness. As the night deepens, the reality of their situation sinks in. This is no Hollywood script. Robert wipes frost from his face, scanning the frozen wreckage. Jake prees open a storage compartment, revealing a small first aid kit and a flare gun. The co-pilot sighs. One flare. We have to use it wisely. Robert nods. Then we make sure we're visible when we fire it. A flight attendant rubs her arms, shivering. We need more warmth. Jake looks at the clear sky. No clouds. If a plane flies over, they might see us. Robert adjusts a reflective panel from the plane, angling it toward the sun. The wind picks up, howling through the valley. A distant avalanche rumbles in the mountains, a reminder of how unforgiving their surroundings are. Robert tightens his makeshift scarf, leading the way through knee-deep snow. Jake stumbles but quickly regains his footing. This is brutal. The pilot stops, pointing at a distant ridge. If we get up there, We'll have a clear view of the sky. Robert nods. 10 we climb. The ascent is slow, their breath coming in sharp, visible gasps. Jake wipes his forehead. Not how I expected to spend the weekend. A hawk circles above, a lone sign of life in the frozen wasteland. Robert stops, scanning the valley. If rescue doesn't come, we need to plan our own way out. The wind howls through the cliffs, reminding them they are truly alone. The fire flickers weakly, struggling against the biting wind. A survivor huddles closer, rubbing their hands together for warmth. The flight attendant sighs. They can't let it go out. Luke, one of the crew members, tosses the last bit of dry fabric onto the flames. The co-pilot watches the sky. No sign of anything yet. The fuselage creaks, shifting slightly in the freezing cold. A distant cracking sound echoes across the valley, ice breaking somewhere nearby. The wind howls through the broken plane, making eerie whistling noises. Everyone sits in tense silence, waiting for Robert's team to return. Robert grips the flare gun tightly, taking a deep breath. Jake shivers. This has to work. The co-pilot nods. Fire it now, before the clouds roll in. Robert pulls the trigger. The flare erupts, soaring high above the valley. The red light reflects off the snow, burning brightly against the sky. Everyone holds their breath, watching it slowly fade. Jake whispers, "Come on. Someone has to see that." The wind carries the echo of the flare's pop, then silence. Robert's jaw tightens. No, we wait. Jake paces near the ridge, arms crossed tightly against the cold. Robert exhales sharply, watching the last of the flare's smoke disappear. A flight attendant mutters, "Maybe no one saw it." The co-pilot stares at the horizon. "Wait, do you hear that?" A low rumble echoes through the valley, faint but growing. Robert turns quickly, eyes scanning the sky. "That's an engine." Jake shields his eyes, squinting. "There, a plane." The aircraft appears in the distance, its searchlight sweeping the mountains. Robert smiles for the first time since the crash. "We're getting out of here." Robert jumps up and down, waving his arms. "Over here." Jake grabs a reflective panel, angling it toward the sun to flash a signal. The co-pilot waves a piece of fabric, his voice hoarse from shouting. The plane tilts slightly, banking for another pass. A moment of hesitation grips the group. Did they see us? A voice crackles through the broken radio. "Survivors spotted. Stand by." Robert exhales sharply, relief washing over him. Jake laughs breathlessly. "We're actually going home." The plane releases a bright orange marker, signaling their location for the rescue team. The helicopter blades chop through the freezing air, sending snow swirling around them. Robert shields his face as the wind kicks up debris from the wreckage. A rescuer jumps out, motioning them forward. "Move quickly." Jake stumbles, but is helped by another crew member, his hands numb from the cold. The co-pilot supports a flight attendant, making sure she gets on first. Robert takes one last look at the wreckage, the place where they fought to survive. The rescuer grabs his arm. "You're the last one. Let's go." Robert steps onto the helicopter, his body exhausted, but his mind still sharp. As the door shuts, he watches the frozen landscape shrink beneath them. A medic wraps a thermal blanket around Robert's shoulders. Jake takes a shaky breath, his hands still trembling. "You guys are lucky," a rescuer says. "Another day out there would have been dangerous." Robert smirks weakly. "Yeah, I prefer my disasters to have DGI effects." The co-pilot watches out the window as the wreckage fades into the distance. A medic checks vitals, ensuring everyone is stable. Lauren, a flight attendant, clutches a bottle of water, unable to stop shaking. Robert exhales, feeling every muscle in his body relax for the first time. The mountains stretch behind them, holding the memories of their survival. The helicopter door swings open, revealing flashing cameras and reporters. A wave of relief washes over the survivors as they step onto solid ground. Jake runs a hand through his hair. V actually made it. Medical staff rush forward, guiding them toward a heated tent. A reporter calls out, "Mr. Downey, what was it like?" Robert glances at the cameras but says nothing, his mind still in survival mode. Lauren hugs a fellow flight attendant, tears streaming down her face. The co-pilot shakes hands with the rescue team, thanking them repeatedly. Robert steps aside, taking a deep breath. He will never forget this experience. Robert flips through TV channels, all broadcasting news of the crash. A reporter's voice echoes. Against all odds, Robert Downey Jr. and his crew survived. He exhales, rubbing his temples. What a damn trip. Jake texts from the next room, "Dude, we just survived a movie plot." Robert chuckles softly, but doesn't reply. The reflection in the hospital window shows a man who has faced the unimaginable. A knock at the door. "Mr. Downey, you have visitors." He stands up, rolling his shoulders. "All right, let's do this." As he steps into the hallway, he knows one thing for sure. He'll never take life for granted again.